All right. So basically, what I want to do is what I'm so impressed about you is just your story. I mean, it gives people. I want to give people a lot of hope that if they're stuck, if they're experiencing failure, um, that it's not over. It's a long game, and you have amazing story, and I'm really thankful you're going to hopefully share a little bit of it.
I'll share whatever you'd like me to share, man.
All right. You tell me when you're ready and we'll get going.
I'm ready, dude.
What's up, everybody? There are certain people that fascinate me, and I'm definitely fascinated by my guest today, my friend Matt Aitchison. This dude has an energy and a passion for life and adventure. He's a seven-figure real estate investor. He's a millennial entrepreneur. He's the founder of the Six-Figure Flipper and the founder of Direct Mail Mastery. He's the founder and host of Millionaire Mindcast. I mean, this guy's just doing a ton. He's been featured on the Wall Street Journal, the Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, Forbes. I mean, he's doing just a great job. He's a presenter and coach. And most of all, he's a proud father and proud husband, two little girls that he's a father of. And I began hearing about Matt a couple of years ago. He was popping up all over the place, social media. He started his podcast. People were talking about him. So I decided to reach out to him about a year ago or so, and we've gotten together a few times since. And the crazy thing is, I found out he was 29 years old at the time, now 30. And everything that I just mentioned really happened in the last 5 years or so. I love this guy's story and his energy and his willingness to share. He certainly inspires me, and I'm absolutely certain he's going to inspire you as well. Welcome, Matty A.
Dan, what's up, my brother?
Not much, just living the dream. Living the dream. How are you today?
Good, man. I think I'm gonna clip out that intro right there, and I'm just gonna have that playing in the background everywhere I go to make myself feel a whole lot better about myself.
It is all true. I mean, from everything I heard about you before, and now I'm getting to know you more and more. I mean, you definitely walk the talk and exemplify, drive, passion for life. I mean, in all domains of life. Like I said earlier, being a good dad and a husband, and doing adventures, and then not to mention your business growth has been just amazing. And I don't know, would you mind sharing your story? I mean, it's the thing that probably impressed me most, although you've been giving me advice in lots of different areas. And for being just 30 years old, you've got a great story already. Maybe where you were at 10, 15 years ago, your motivation for making the change, what your mindset was, what it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am humbled by those kind words, man, and I definitely reciprocate those. So it's an honor being here on the show today. And every time you and I get together, we get into a place of unconventional conversation. And I think that's one thing that was lacking early in my life is, most of the conversations that I was having, most of the people I was surrounding myself with, most of the environments that I was putting myself in, although I had this big goal and dream and vision of, hey, I want to live the good life, I didn't really know what that meant. Minus what
How old were you at this time?
Probably in my early teens, of getting a better idea around, just pop culture and everything that was going on in that time, in early 2000s. For me, was this sexy lifestyle, but I wasn't pairing any of my actions or routines or habits. I wasn't even thinking about that stuff at that time. It was just all about my group and the people that I hung out with and what was cool and what was fun and what was convenient. And there, minus, sports, I wasn't really pushing myself in a lot of areas of life. So that led me to starting to, indulge in some extracurricular activities and things that led me to getting expelled from high school. And that was kind of my big first wake-up call of going, wow, my actions do have consequences, right? Your parents always tell you those kind of things. And yet, we could sit here, and I'm sure many people can relate to this, of reading, information and book and listening to podcast after podcast, but it doesn't really sink in or settle in with you until you actually experience it firsthand. And so I kind of connected those two dots and said, hey, I need to, as much as I've gotten myself into this situation, I can get myself out of it. And so I ended up having to do a wash list of items to be able to basically get the expulsion expunged off my record so I could apply to colleges. And I was a 4.0 student, so somewhat of an overachiever in the classroom, or trying to, and yet my head wasn't in the game whatsoever. It was, what are we doing on Friday nights? Who are we going out? What are we drinking? What are we smoking? What are we, all of that kind of stuff, right? And I ended up kind of getting through that season of my life and that initial turbulence. And I ended up getting accepted into UC Santa Barbara. And about a year into college, I had really kind of fallen into the same patterns, but just new group of people, new environment. And I hadn't really course corrected. I did what I needed to do to get by the last time, but nothing had really stuck in a way that I was living my life. And I ended up getting arrested my first year in college for the exact same thing I got expelled from. But because I was now an adult, I was facing felony charges, time in prison. And, basically my whole life had flashed kind of before my eyes. And I remember coming out of my blackout in the jail cell, and I looked to my left, and there's this big biker dude in full leathers, and he's kind of like chuckling and smiling. And I looked to my right, and there's some like tweaker, druggy guy who's just like, giving me the mean mug. And I literally just looked down and thought to myself, there is absolutely no way in hell that I'm going to allow this to become my reality.
So
and
that was the moment?
That was the moment, man, because I was scared shitless of what was my future, And so for me, it was one of those things where I remember reading the rear view mirror and the windshield analogy in an article that I was studying for school. And it was, kind of that analogy of if all you do is focus on the rear view mirror when you're driving on the way to your destination, you're going to lose sight of what's in front of you. You're going to crash, right? But the rear view mirror is there for a reason. It's there to kind of give you that guidance and that reflection, and to kind of be aware of your surroundings and what has kind of gone beyond or past you, but the focus needs to be on the windshield. And I chose that, my past wasn't going to equal my future. And I needed to obviously make some massive changes. So I went through this big reflection process and just really thinking long and hard about who I wanted to become, what I wanted to do, why was I acting this way? I had two great parents who divorced when I was young, but they were always there, always supportive, and were anything you could ask for from, a parental standpoint. And yet
as you asked these questions to yourself, did you have a mentor? Was there somebody you were speaking to, or this was just really self-reflection?
Yeah, this was just self-reflection, and,
wow,
having a lot of time and energy at that stage of my life to really figure stuff out. And I remember the day I got out of jail, I went and researched and called on probably 30 or 40 job postings. I ended up getting 10 or 11 interviews within a week. I was hired, and I ended up getting on board as a cold caller at this small investment brokerage. This guy was selling retirement planning to certificated and the classified employees. And so I was just pounding the phones. I started working 20 hours and 30 hours, and I was working full time for him. Then I worked my way up over the next few years of kind of being his right-hand guy. And that was my first exposure to small business ownership and entrepreneurship. And it just resonated with me. And
so when you took that job, I'm taking it you dropped out of school, or did you continue?
No, I was still going to school full time.
Yeah.
I was still going
Right.
to school full time, and both my parents were like, "Ha, yeah, you ain't dropping out of school, right?" And I was, both my parents have always been supportive and have done so much for me that it was my responsibility to finish out school and do what I committed to doing and what they'd worked so hard for me to have the opportunity to do. And so I had gotten a little taste of entrepreneurship. And as I was getting close to graduating, he wanted me to kind of become a quote unquote employee. And I knew that it just wasn't anything that really fired me up. It didn't fill, my cup in any capacity. And so I decided to graduate. I moved back home. I moved in with my dad. And I remember like looking on Craigslist and putting in all kinds of job posting, resumes and all kinds of stuff. And I wasn't getting any callbacks, and all of them for like $40,000 a year. And I was like, screw this, man. Like, what am I signing up for here? So I literally remember creating a hit list, a career hit list of all the things that I want to have in my career. And one was to be my own boss, freedom and flexibility of, being a young 21-year-old and just not wanting somebody to tell me what to do or tell me what I can accomplish or can't accomplish. I wanted something that had unlimited earning potential. So there was no ceiling or cap on what I could make, whether I worked 5 hours a week or 50 hours a week. I wanted to help people in the process, because through that, those last few years, I'd really started doing a lot of personal development and work on myself. And I wanted to use my second chance that I was given when all those charges were dropped, and I was able to move beyond that wasn't the person that I was, nor did I want to be. And therefore I wanted to become somebody that was inspiring and helpful and productive. And so I wanted to make sure that was tied into my career path as well. I wanted the lifestyle design to be able to travel and have the fun and the freedom and the sexiness that comes along with entrepreneurship. And I also wanted something that not only checked all those boxes, but allowed me to create wealth. And I kept going back to like wealth, and not many industries allowed you to really create wealth except for real estate. And so I ended up answering, those little Craigslist ads of come study and get your license for free.
And how old were you then?
I was 21.
21. Okay. Jeez.
And I got my license. I commuted to a little place in South Sac. I called it South Sac, Iraq, because we literally had bullets come through our office one day at a gas station robbery. And I was one of the only Caucasian people in the office, which I loved, because I grew up around a melting pot of friends. But it was one of those things where I knew that if, I was going to go out and build this dream of mine, that I was going to have to be all in. So I spent my first 10 months basically really kind of mentoring under the first broker that I'd ever had. And I saw a lot of stuff that I would have never done and have never done. And I saw a lot of stuff that was really smart. So I got exposed to kind of both ends of the spectrum. And they were also flipping a lot of houses. This is back in 2011. So I saw how hard I was working and how little of commission checks I was making. And I saw how less he was working and how big his checks were. And I went, okay, so this is, I think, the path that I want to go down. And at the same time, I started building my real estate team. 5 years into that, we were, 2 years back to back Wall Street Journal top 1,000 real estate teams. Over the last 5 years, I've flipped over 150 houses. I built up a very sizable rental portfolio that generates the passive income. And now I get to do what I really love doing, because real estate is, I love it, but it's not my passion. It's the vehicle that allows me the platform to do what I get to do, which is helping other people unlock more freedom, living a more rich and fulfilling life through real estate. And now I get to teach, train, speak, and educate others on how to leverage this vehicle, this platform, to go out and do the things that they're extremely passionate about. So that is kind of the story in a nutshell. And obviously there's been a lot of failures along the way, a lot. And those are, consistently happening in order to level up.
So how do you handle that failure?
I've just changed the conversation with failure, and I think there's a quote that says every level has new devils, or every level has different devils. And, you know, I think, I know failures around every corner because I'm constantly pushing to get around every corner.
Well,
And
you and I have talked about that. It's I mean, you can't grow. It's impossible to grow without failure. I mean,
right.
that's where you learn. That's where you try new things. That's where you push the boundaries. And I mean, Matt, clearly you're doing that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think you know, I look at no matter where anybody is at, you know, they're on a certain level, and where they're at right now was once a stretch for them, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Right. And so whether you give yourself credit for it or not, you have found a way to build the habits, the disciplines, the resources, the network, the routine, whatever it may be, that has gotten you to exactly where you're at today. And I was listening to a good old quote the other day from, who was it? I think it was Jim Rohn. And he said, you always have the ability to get more because you can become more. And so that was one of the things that, you know, I was looking back and going, you know, that's kind of been my mentality of going, I don't necessarily know it all. I'm not the most talented. I'm not the smartest. But I know that with an insane amount of hard work and obsessing over the right things in my life that have the biggest kind of output or results in my life, I can go and get whatever it is that I want. And so a lot of the things that early on, when people go, well, what'd you do differently to kind of recalibrate or set yourself on a new path? I mean, part of it that I think a lot of people know the answer to and just choose not to execute on is really, really protecting your environment, your relationships, and who you surround yourself with. And I am consistently, this is something that I'm always looking at, always auditing. I am consistently purifying myself of the distractions, of the negative emotions, of the negative people, the things that bring me down and prevent me from reaching my full potential. And I don't even think so many people realize the negative emotions, the negative people, the negative environments that they're in because it's just second nature, or they've justified it, or it's a family member, or they're used to it, or they
It's all
tell
around us.
themselves it's
It's
okay.
all around us.
And you have to be a relentless gatekeeper of your mind, of what you feed your mind, of what you feed your body, of who you surround yourself with. And that's something that I struggled with in the beginning because I didn't want to hurt people. I care about people. I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I didn't want people to think that I was, you know, acting like I was too good or too cool or whatever it is. And I've gotten so clear on my purpose and my why and what I'm doing it for and who I'm doing it for, that I'm okay if certain people don't like that or don't agree with that or don't, you know, align with that. And
How old were you when you started really realizing? I mean, it's about what you surround yourself with and who you surround yourself with.
probably like 22, 23, after I'd been doing a lot of work and getting into a lot of personal development trainings and things like that. And, you know, Gary Vee, I follow Gary Vee a lot. And one of the things that I just loved what he said, and it kind of ties into this, somebody came up to him after an event, was like, hey, you know, I'm really struggling. My mom is, you know, really negative and she doesn't want to, you know, she doesn't want to support me in going after my goals. And, you know, I just don't know what to do. And Gary Vee just said, tell her to F off. And in 5 years, when I come back, if you realize why I left and you want to work on yourself and be back in my life, then I'm totally willing to accept you back, but F off. And the guy was like, what? And he's like, look, dude, like, I'm getting goosebumps as I tell you this. It's not the answer I want to tell you, but it's the answer. Like, if you want to get to another level in your life, you have to be ruthless in the standards you create for your life. And I always say I'm a loving human being, but my standards are not. And I've gotten very clear on what I will and will not accept in my life. And that's whether that's in personal relationships, whether that's in my business, whether that's for myself, whether that's with my health. Like, you have to have standards and you have to uphold those standards, because when you uphold those standards, it removes the people that opt out of upholding those standards, and it creates room for the people that are playing at that level, which just elevates you to a whole nother status
Right.
and level with them too. So I think a lot of people are missing clarity on what those standards are for themselves, or they know what they are and they just don't have the discipline to uphold them on a consistent basis over and over again.
Yeah, I like Gary Vee a lot too. I mean, I love his message. That it's all our fault. Like we have the ability to create or do whatever it is we want to do. And
Yep.
if you're not happy with your parents, are you on their checkbook still? And are they, making your gym payment, your car payment? If so, then they're the boss. Otherwise, break away and do your thing and prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that message as well. So are you, changing the subject a little bit, but are you still flipping houses? Because I see it seems like about every week I'm seeing a big check that you're showing. And I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff.
Yes, I am. I mean, that's, I think, something that I'll always do. It's a part of the brand that I've built. You said something earlier of, kind of walking the talk. Like that was one of the things that was a big area of my life I was not being authentic in early on before I'd gotten in trouble. Was I was talking, but I wasn't walking the walk. My audio and everything that I said and I was all about, the video wasn't matching up with that. And so I'm a big believer in, not only being the messenger, but living your message. Because there's a lot of people out there that have a platform now that can, use video, use a podcast. They can say one thing, but behind the scenes, they're not doing something else. And I just don't think that eventually will ever lead to longevity. And it doesn't align with who I've worked so hard to become. Therefore, I believe in, if I'm teaching and training people on flipping houses, dude, you better be flipping houses, man. If you're teaching and training people on direct mail, dude, you better be doing it. If you're teaching and training people on goal setting, dude, you better be doing it, right? So that's where I am consistently. All the stuff that I put out, I am doing. I can.
It's integrity. It's integrity. It's integrity, Matt. It's as simple as that. It's all about your character. And I don't really believe one could have true long-term success without integrity.
Agreed.
And I mean, you definitely exemplify it. So you're doing a ton of stuff, right? You just said you've got your mailing business, you've got your flipping business, you've got coaching clients, you're speaking to people. You got to get home and spend time with your kids, because that's really what it's all about, and your wife. And I see you mountain biking some crazy stuff a few days ago, and you're traveling around the world. So what excites you most right now?
It's funny. The other day, somebody asked me like, "Hey, what's going on? What's new in your world? What's super exciting?" And I've actually, it's funny. I've been talking to a lot of people, just kind of catching up with some people that I haven't caught up with in a while. And my response every single time is nothing. Like nothing is new and exciting in my world. And that's exactly the way I want it. I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. And I've eliminated a lot of distractions, and I am focusing on my major pillars and priorities in my life, which is my 2 little girls, my wife. And, when I started making that an intention and really making sure that my schedule and my activities reflected that quote unquote priority, those relationships are overflowing right now.
Man, I love that answer. I mean, you fast forward to when you're 80 years old and you want to look at, how you want your life to be. If you started defining the things you want to be doing, it's everything you're doing now. So I get the answer of, I don't want anything to change. I want to be working in a something I'm passionate in. I want to have a relationship with my family and loved ones. I want to be on lifetimes of adventures with my buddies, trying new things, learning every day. And that's what we want to be doing when we're 80. Why wait? I mean, start living it right now.
I was very fortunate to get exposed to a lot of people that are very, very successful, have a lot more life experience than me at a really young age. And I was able to kind of hack those lessons and that wisdom and apply it to my life to where I'm at today. And so, it is just what you said. A lot of people defer, kick the can down the road. And I was one of those people where I was grinding 80, 90 hours a week. And I felt like it was a badge of honor and it was great. And financially things were good, but I wasn't putting any intention towards my health, any intention towards my relationships, any intention towards giving back to other people and charities and volunteering and trips and experiences. It was just like, I'm grinding. I got a business to show for it. Look at me. And I was purely driven by ego. And when I started doing a lot of this self-work over the last, 5-6 years, it's been, I don't want to be somebody that is financially abundant and I have a lot of zeros in my bank account, but I'm bankrupt in all the other areas that I tell myself are important. And I've really made it this intention there is no such thing as being completely balanced, but finding this counterbalance between all of these gardens and pillars of my life that I say are really important, and making sure that I'm actually, doing the things in those areas that allow them to thrive and, be as abundant as they possibly can. And it's obviously always a work in progress, and you go through seasons and you go through challenges and stuff comes up. But at the same time, when those are the North Stars, it makes it that much easier for me to go, does this align with my North Stars? And if it doesn't, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate the ask. I really appreciate whatever, but I just can't commit to that at this time. And I've gotten so much better about saying no to things that aren't in alignment with my pillars and my goals and the areas that are most important to me. And instead of the fear of missing out like I used to have, now that I've found those paths and those channels, which has taken some time. Like that's the other thing, some people don't find it and figure it out till they're 40. Some people don't figure it out until they're 50 or 60. I mean, so like it's a constant evolution and journey. But with that being said, giving those areas the necessary time and attention they deserve, and not distracting yourself with the other things that pull you away from those things, which is what most people do. Right. That's given me the ability to go really deep and see those things start to blossom and thrive. And so I feel really good about that. I call that living like a whole life millionaire. I don't want to just be a millionaire in my bank account. I want to be a millionaire in all the areas of my life.
That's great insight, Matt. I mean, that's one of the questions I was going to ask next, but you answered it. It's, you're grinding every day. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff that has to happen today. Keeping your eye on the long term, is a challenge. Do you have any disciplines that you do, whether it's reading every morning or meditation or anything that centers you and allows you time to think about the big picture?
Oh yeah. I mean, every single day, and we're on Zoom right now, so I'm going to show you this just real fast. Can you see that?
Yeah. So
that right there is my morning and evening routine. And so this is what I've identified over the last however many years of kind of figuring out. I call it my day, my way. And this is my morning routine. This is my evening routine. And I have my top 5 goals of the month, top 5 goals of the week, and my top 5 goals of the day. And by planning these things out, my North Stars, I know what I need to be focusing my activities and attention on. But then I have my routines that when I do about 80% of these things in my routine, I know I'm most likely going to win my day. I'm going to show up passionate, purposeful, focused, energized. And that's kind of like my life hack. It's how, by staying super aware, which is really this tracking piece right here, it gives me the opportunity to make the right choice. And then based on the choices that I'm given, it just comes down to discipline. And I think
did you create that?
Yeah, I just built that from scratch.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I mean, I've seen all kinds of them, and I've got one I use, but I'd love a copy of yours.
Oh, dude, I'll send it out for sure. Because I think that, at the end of the day, like we get bored. Like we just get bored. Like, oh, check out what that guy's doing. Check out what she's up to. Check out this cool new tool. Check out this. And it's like, you hear these people say the over 10-year, 20-year overnight success story. And those are the people that dealt with boredom, disciplined their disappointment every time they faced failure, and just kept going every day, consistently at the highest and best activities that ultimately would lead to those massive results that most people don't have the discipline to stay committed to each and every day, each and every month, each and every year. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when I look at this, I try and infuse as much fun and joy into what I'm doing, and also realize that there's going to be a lot of stuff that I don't feel like doing on a daily basis. And I'm in the mindset, in the discipline to say, no matter what, I'm committed to doing it, whether I feel
Well,
like it or
that's the
not.
difference between success and failure is, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and we all have dreams, and most people don't have the discipline to do the stuff they don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Oprah said it best, and something to the fact that, we're all the same. We just continue to do things we hate every
Yeah.
day. So,
Yeah.
um, I know I don't want to get negative at all, but, and maybe this isn't a negative question. What worries you? What keeps you up at night?
Oh, for me, if I'm being completely honest, the one fear that I've got is, like dying too early, dying a little too early. Now that I have two little girls and there's so much that I want to do with them, and, you know, experience with them and see them accomplish, that's a fear of mine. But I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night. And, the only way that I overcome that fear is literally just playing full out every single day and going, man, like, and I can confidently say that, if I were to pass away tomorrow, that I have lived a pretty damn full life. And I think most people that know me would say that's the case. And so that's how I, just try and show up and lead every single day with the intention of just playing full out. And I really believe that life rewards people who play full out and do it consistently and do it authentically and generously. And so that's probably one of the things that, I've always kind of battled, because I dealt with an early death in my family of, my stepmom, who was basically in my life from 3 to, 16, 17, and just seeing somebody do all the right things and get dealt a crappy deck of cards for no reason whatsoever just kind of made me a little bit fearful of, like, not only fearful, but like angry a little bit too, of going like, man,
Oh, all those emotions. I get it.
you can do all the right things and it doesn't really matter. And so that's kind of what led down my rebellious path for some time. And obviously going through that whole journey of just acceptance and working on myself and learning a lot about life in general. I don't worry about it as much anymore, but honestly, I through meditation and through a lot of the routines and habits and practices I've built up, I do worry, but I spend like a millisecond there and I move on from it very, very quickly.
Yeah. Well, you know my story, and similar. My wife passed away after 28 years, and came out of nowhere. No warning signs, just leukemia, and 6 weeks later, gone. So I think, my advice to you would be, definitely plan to live a long time. You're doing all the things on that list. You're making sure you tell your kids and your wife you love them every day. You're spending time with them. You're taking care of their financial future. You're working out, your health, your body. So you're doing everything in your power to live a long time, and more than likely you will, barring any catastrophe, right? But
Yep.
as long as, if you left this world, you leave the people you care about most in good shape, everything turns out okay. And stuff happens, and so there's a component of planning for tomorrow, planning that you're going to live a long time, because you probably will, but living like this could be your last day. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a tricky balance. It's asking yourself frequently. I think you do it probably with your meditation. It's about being grateful, every day for what you have, and eliminate that negativity and be happy and live the day you want to live,
Yep.
and make wise decisions so that the decisions you're making today don't negatively impact your future. So,
Yep. Totally
uh,
agree.
So we'll finish with this. How are you maintaining balance? So, I mean, I saw the list, but you're working hard. What time does your day end, and what do you do for balance?
About 10:30 and up, 4:30 the next day, between 4 and 4:30. Um, the way I maintain balance is awareness, and that's part of that list. That's it. People look at that and the majority of people go, dude, that's intense. That's pretty overkill. And
Yeah.
that's why I remind myself that's exactly why I do it. When the majority of people look at what I'm doing and say, that's intense, that's overkill, that's when I know I'm doing the right thing. Because I don't want to be like the majority of people. And I mean that in the most respectful and nicest way. But I want to be an uncommon person amongst common people. And I want to display that in my life. And the one way I can do that is by being really aware and intentional about the things that I do and the areas that I spend my time. And so, those are my habits, but man, I go, I might go jump on a jump bike here in downtown Sac and just go cruise and grab lunch and hang out and get some joy. Like, I always try and find at least 30 minutes a day to fill my cup of joy. And whether that's like, hey, just enjoying a cup of coffee and sitting out in the backyard, whether that's having a great uplifting conversation with a friend, working out, physical activity is definitely something for me that's really, really important for my sanity. And it gives me that time and space to exert energy and, kind of be just by myself. And I part of, what I do as well is I schedule one date for myself, uninterrupted, nobody else around me, to go do something just for me every single week. But part of what I do is also part of what keeps me balanced. Like, I love what I do. Therefore, I don't feel like I need balance away from work because I love working. When I'm spending time with my girls, I don't feel like I need time. So like, it's all kind of like this, it's kind of like the crock pot. Like, you throw a few ingredients in the crock pot and it's missing 5 or 6 of them. It's just not going to end up being that great dish. If you have all the right ingredients in there and those all marinate together and fuse together, like, that dish is going to be phenomenal. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, I've just been kind of being the cook in the kitchen, testing all these different ingredients out, figuring out what is my best dish that I can make. And I'm still working on creating the best one, but I'm pretty happy with what I got right now.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, you're 30 years old, and I mean, you have it dialed in. What are you doing at 35? Same stuff? Do you have any specific goals in the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, I'm right now on a 5-year location independent hustle. So basically, the next 5 years are all going to be pushing towards automating my businesses and staff and team members and products and assets to a place where I can manage, operate, scale, and grow them from anywhere in the world. So that way, if me and my family want to travel for a month and stay in Europe, and we want to go over to Barcelona, and we want to drop down to Italy and whatever, I can do all of that and live off my passive income and or, continue to scale my businesses in a way that fund our lifestyle.
Man, I love it. I love it. You are such an inspiration, man. I enjoyed our time today. I really thank you. How do people get a hold of you if they want to?
They can always check out mattaitchison.com, where we're always updating, new content, free downloads, all kinds of cool freebies. Or they can just find me on any of my social media platforms, all the same handle, official Matty A, Mattya. And always love connecting and, chatting with people. And Dan, brother, always a pleasure hanging out with you and learning from you, and the value you bring to everybody is a major gift. So the fact that you're doing this, man, excites me.
Well, you inspired me to do this. Actually, that's, I think, one of the first reasons I called you. I wanted to, hear about all this stuff that you're up to. It inspired the heck out of me, and, I'm going down a path too. So thank you very much. I look forward to getting together with you soon, and have a great rest of the day.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.